Good afternoon, students. Today we will continue the lesson Science and Society, the Perspective of an Indian Women Scientist, written by Anita Mehta. And this article, it is in the form of conference presentation presented by her at the conference. In this conference, as we have discussed in the last class, she brings out the three main ideas under each subheading, which highlights why women are lagging in the field of science and research. In our first class, we have discussed the first point, that is disrespect for gender identity, and the second point we have discussed, it was about disrespect for cultural identity. And today we will continue the final part and final discussion of this chapter. Now straight away we will come to the third point, that which she presented it under the subheading as rights of authors. What is the rights of author? In this presentation she shares a story, and this story does however has at least a partially happy ending. She says that the field she was trying to publicize was in fact taken very seriously. She was doing research in the field of sand granules. At the outset, when she undertook that research, people started laughing and they started jeeringly remarking that for women, these sort of easy things, sand, mud, and other things, are of importance. But as the time passed, as the time went by, our topic became a very serious topic of discussion. It gained wide popularity and it gave her name and fame, and as well as a well-known identity in the fields of scientific circles. I apologize for this rather impersonal introduction, but much of what I say has been informed by my personal experience as an Indian women scientist. Of course, it has been fed by experiences of those who are Indian scientists but not women, or those who are women scientists but not Indians, which is why there is a certain universality about the admittedly personal observation in this talk. So in this talk she is also presenting not as a scientist, generally as a common Indian woman, the Indian common women's perspectives, what all experiences, what she has observed when the Indian women faced the problems in the society, all those things she says that she is going to talk about it. I should also add the reason why I am giving this talk in such a distinguished forum is that I am now personally easy about its subject matter. Put it simply, I am older than I used to be, and this is at least in part the reason that I need to struggle far less than I used to have to in order to be heard. So women to gain a distinguished name and to give talks and presentations at the seminar, she says it took her a lot of time. She is now much older, much experienced. She has to come out of the struggles when compared with men. This, on the other hand, puts on me a responsibility to be able to give voice to the problem of those suffering gender, racial biases which are still going on, whose continuing bitterness would not allow them to be taken seriously in a dispassionate forum such as this one. She voiced that even today, women from the third world countries or from the tropical countries, India and Africa, they have to go through much of the suffering. And because of that gender and racial bias, even today in the forums and in the conference of international importance, women's voice is choked, their voice is not being heard in these platforms. If they speak also, their voices are not given much importance. It has also been my good fortune to forge very strong alliances across the gender, generalization, racial spectrum, which has helped me to overcome hostility at a personal level, at a collective level. These links have allowed me to be heard with empathy by those whose life experiences on the other side of various divides have been rather different from mine. What she wants to explain here is that to mitigate the sufferings of being a woman scientist, one of the main things what she has done is she widened up. She had a greater contact with the people who were from different forums, irrespective of their racial backgrounds, irrespective of their countries. So, because of that reason, she was able to overcome these sort of sufferings which will be meted out to our women scientists. Let me repeat the question that my French colleague had asked in a more impersonal way. Why are women and or people from developing countries treated less seriously in an academic forum than men and or someone from the developed world would be? And for this, Anita Mehta adds another question. Why in most of the seminars that I attend as a practicing physicist are many women afraid of asking sensible questions when many men are not afraid of showing their ignorance rather loudly, or to ask questions which can be paraphrased as I ask, therefore I am? Now she answers that question. Now, instead of giving the stock answers that are usually produced at this point, let me say that women are late starters in science, and naturally they have not had the cumulative time required to put us as easily at par with our male colleagues. I will admit that just as one is more likely to find students ready for Oxbridge in elite public schools in England rather than in comprehensive schools, one is perhaps more likely to find more natural sciences trained to perfection in their objectivity among men than women. However, even in the probabilistic scenario, it must be conceded that there might well be some deserving women who have clambered up a rather difficult path and attained a point of some professional visibility. Their reluctance to ask questions at other people's seminar, or the audience still slightly patronizing responses to their own seminars, can only be put down to the mindsets of audience which are conditioned to suspect their intellectual training. This is based largely on the following reasoning. Given the late starters phenomena in science, more women than otherwise would be likely to be weak in their conceptual backgrounds in science, thus more likely to give ill-conceived talks, to ask questions based on Ames understanding. However, there is a question of cultural or gender based diversity. There are ways of self expression that are unique to women, that are distinct from men. For example, a certain enthusiasm or impulsiveness of expression is rather more common even in scientific talks to people from tropical countries or to women. which carries no external value and is no more or no less indicative of the content of the talk than the more stony faced countenance typical of more temperate climes or of men. Unfortunately, the vast preponderance of the latter among the ranks of successful scientists has created an image of the scientific countenance where scientific objectivity is sometimes linked to a neutrality or even a lack of expression and expressiveness. Thank you, students.